Today, we're unpacking a classified dossier that, honestly, reads more like a biological nightmare. We're investigating the Pithoragarh Research Center incident. This isn't your standard explainer, folks. This is a deep dive into an absolute catastrophe that started in the dead silence of a deep forest. Let's get right into it. To really grasp the sheer scale of this horror, we got to start with the immediate aftermath. Quote, doctors were shocked at how Biren was still alive. Biren was a local forest guard, and they pulled him from the wreckage of a brutal car crash. When he hit the medical compound, the professionals were completely baffled. The guy's body was heavily mutilated, severely burned from the impact, and yet he was clinging to life. It literally defied every single rule of medical science. Section 1. The forest's first victim, Patient Zero. So how did this nightmare actually start? Well, we have to look back at Biren's routine patrol. He was just doing his normal daily job out in the woods when his body staged a violent revolt. We're talking a sudden, total loss of motor control. Imagine mentally screaming at your leg to hit the brakes, and it just doesn't respond. His eyes turned this violent, unnatural shade of red. And the most grotesque part? His skin literally started melting off his tissues like hot wax. It was this agonizing, rapid physical breakdown that caused him to swerve and smash head-on into a tree. Section 2, Mysterious Fungus in Blood, the Discovery. So the local rangers pull him from the smoking wreck and rush him to the nearest hospital right inside the Pithoragarh Research Center. When doctors put his blood under the microscope, they found a biological anomaly that is absolute nightmare fuel. This wasn't some run-of-the-mill bacterial infection we're used to fighting off. It was a bizarre, unknown parasitic fungus. Now, human chemistry is pretty fragile, right? Well, this pathogen just completely hijacks and shuts down the nervous system. It traps the victim in this horrifying biological limbo. It halts all healing, but at the same time, it actively prevents you from dying. And the craziest part is it totally rewires brain chemistry, turning the host violently aggressive. Biren wasn't acting human anymore. He was like a rabid animal, viciously trying to bite anyone who got close to his bed. Section 3, Entering the Forest, the Expedition. Driven by sheer scientific urgency, the center dispatched a team the very next day. A senior professor, along with two young researchers, Ritik and Shalini, headed straight into the woods to find the source. If you look at their timeline, it builds towards disaster so logically. Morning of day 1, they head out. By the afternoon, bam, progress halted. A massive fallen tree is blocking the dirt path. They have to ditch their vehicle and continue on foot. Flash forward 3 hours, and they are incredibly deep in this dense forest, miles away from safety. At this point, the professor was already feeling this suffocating sense of dread, like the forest air itself was screaming at them that they'd gone too far. But, they pushed forward anyway. The professor gave his team a super stark warning. He told them it shuts down the nervous system and makes a human worse than a wild animal. He needed them to know exactly what was at stake here. Whatever they were hunting down was highly contagious and utterly devastating. So they gear up, lock down their protective gloves, and start meticulously sweeping the area for samples. Section 4. Ritik's Fatal Mistake, the Contagion. 3 hours of searching, they're collecting standard samples, finding absolutely nothing unusual. And then, protocol completely breaks down in a fraction of a second. First, Ritik wanders just a bit away from the group and spots some strange mushrooms growing in the deep shade of a rock. Second, and this is the fatal error, guys, he recklessly plucks a wild mushroom with his bare hands, totally ignoring the professor's warnings. Third, the biological payload is nearly instantaneous. Almost immediately, he starts having these intense, completely unexplained bursts of anger, just verbally lashing out at his colleague, Shalini. Just try to imagine the sheer terror racing through Ritik's mind in that moment as the pathogen takes hold. Why am I getting angry? For no reason. Am I infected too? He's realizing in real time that his mind is slipping. It's being hijacked by the exact fungus they came out there to study. He tries to brush it off, tries to play it cool for the others, but the parasite is already aggressively rewiring his brain. Section 5. Night and Escape, Fight for Survival. From here, things escalate ridiculously fast. As the sun starts to set, throwing these long, disorienting shadows through the trees, this clinical scientific expedition just evolves into a desperate, bloody fight for survival. The group dynamic completely shatters. Ritik physically and viciously attacks Shalini. It is pure chaos. Before the professor can even intervene or contain him, Ritik breaks away and just vanishes into the darkening forest. He's just gone, swallowed whole by the woods, leaving the other two entirely stranded. So now, the remaining survivors are deeply divided by two completely opposing mindsets. Shalini's raw survival instinct kicks into high gear immediately. She states, he is infected, we must leave now to survive. Makes total sense. But the professor? He's bound by this misguided sense of guilt and duty. He insists, it is our responsibility, we cannot leave him to die. It's a fatal kind of stubbornness. Instead of getting out of there, they waste precious time wandering through the trees, looking for a man who is actively mutating, all while pitch-black night fully sets in.
Lost, exhausted, and completely disoriented in the pitch black, they stumble into a clearing. And right there, sitting silently in the dark, is the wrecked, abandoned jeep of the very first victim, Biren. They hadn't found a way out at all. They had walked in a massive circle, bringing themselves right back to the exact spot where this entire horror story originally began. Suddenly, the atmosphere just sharply shifts. The professor hears a rustle in the brush and realizes, with dawning horror, that they are not alone. He whispers, "Shalini, turn off your torch. Make no sound." You can literally feel the sheer, suffocating panic in those words. They're standing in total darkness, realizing that something, maybe Ritik, maybe a whole group of infected, is actively hunting them by the light of their flashlights. And then the silence shatters. Is someone there? Shalini, get up! Run! They are blindly, frantically sprinting through the dense trees. Branches are whipping against their faces as they desperately try to outrun this unseen, infected horror in the dead of night. Every single step is pure terror, with the sounds of the infected closing in right behind them. Through sheer, unbelievable luck, they barely manage to escape the tree line with their lives. But the anomaly remains. That fungus is still out there, thriving in the damp dark of the forest, just waiting for the next person to wander off the path. It's a pretty stark reminder of how little control we actually have over nature, isn't it? Which leaves us with a really chilling question to wrap up this explainer. Who will the forest claim next? The threat is completely uncontained, and the woods are waiting.